SML, welcome to the first installment of the SML The Redraft, where we're going to go through and redraft all the players. We're going to use the attributes as of Season 4, Week 1. I think that was January 9th, or no, not January 9th. You know what I'm talking about. So all of your last week dev games are not going to count for this. But we're just going to go down the order, draft teams out. Ideally, we're going to get this to 24 rounds each, but who knows where we're going to end up being. We've seen how much owner turnover in the league so far, so we'll see who's here. But I guess the pick order, Doink can tell us how he came up with the pick order here, and then we can get into it.
Yeah. How we doing? I just pretty much randomized list of names. I just tinkered around a little bit so that each of us, myself, Meets, Rice, Torque, we're not picking for ourselves. So like we're trying to. The whole premise behind this, and I randomized the order. The whole premise behind this is we were mock drafting, both using kind of what we think, but also like as if we were the person. Like for example, Meets drafted for me, like as if trying to pick who he thought I would take type deal. It's inexact, but it was kind of a fun way to do it. Trying to get into the mind of some of our league mates.
All right, and with that being said, I guess we can hop into the first overall pick here that was randomized. And it is none other than Fig Newton on the Bills.
Tyreek Hill.
And I know the obvious, yeah, the obvious pick here would be Tyreek Hill, but knowing Fig, I mean, he's got to take the best player available here. He wants to compete, and there was two quarterbacks at the top, and that was Justin Herbert and Anthony Richardson. And I know Fig coming from Herbert, I think he wants someone or coming from Allen, he wants someone a little more bona fide quarterback with pass lead elite, and so we're giving him none other than Justin Herbert, who's 29, but he's never really going to regress, and his best ability is his first ability, so he's never going to lose that, no matter how many picks Figs throws with him. But yeah,
I think you'd
that's
be
the
hard pressed
first
to
overall pick.
say that he's not the best quarterback in the league. So
Yeah, I mean,
Especially
it's really 1A and 1B between him and Richardson, but I
yeah,
gave the nod to Herbert.
and I'm not. I forget if you mentioned this or not. This is for a theoretical, like the rest of cycle from
Oh,
week
yeah,
one of
sorry.
year. So it's for a 5 year cycle essentially
Yes.
from current stats. So someone who's Patrick Mahomes or Burrow are kind of debatably from day one of the Madden cycle. Hey, that's the best quarterback in the game. It's probably Mahomes. We're now 5 years from essentially this season is the projected cycle. So we're currently like as SML as it is week one of this season. For a 5 year cycle from here. Theoretically, that's the rest of this cycle, which is why Herbert, who's below 30, makes more sense there compared to Mahomes, who's how old is he now? Is he what's he 31?
I think,
Relative to
I think he's 30.
yeah, I think he's 30.
30. Okay, I mean
I
he'll be
think
fine.
Herbert's 29, so yeah.
Yep. Fair enough.
And then second overall pick, we've got Straw. So kind of alluded to where I was going for this direction, but it's got to be the second best player, in my opinion, left in the draft. And it's got to be Anthony Richardson. He's done pretty good work without a quarterback, but giving him a playmaker like Richardson who can elevate every player around him, we've seen what Prime can do with him. So we're going to give him to Straw and see if Straw can repeat what Prime has done so far. Winning a Super Bowl, probably winning a Super Bowl MVP. And yeah, second overall pick, Anthony Richardson.
I think that's a pretty good example of how this draft's going to be different than what some people might expect, or from the start of the cycle, even using the ratings from this season, the abilities from this season. Preseason Anthony Richardson, like week one Anthony Richardson, probably not that good. I mean, he's probably still going to be an early pick because he's a rookie, he's fast, he's athletic, all of that stuff. But Prime has absolutely developed him into a monster.
Yeah, holy shit.
Agreed.
Speaking of current Anthony Richardson, 99 throw power. He's a 97 overall X factor with 91 speed, 92 excel. His mid accuracy is 96, deep 94. He is a monster. Torque, was that who
Not to
you were
mention he
looking to
has
take within
Fearless
this?
over there too.
Oh, I haven't looked at
Absolutely.
Fearless, one of the better QB abilities.
Yeah, facing
Go ahead, Torque.
Richardson twice a season is interesting to say the least, especially with a user like Prime. Um, he can throw the deep ball, he can run, he can evade sacks. There's no pressure on him ever, it seems like. Super solid. And with an elite passer in SML like Straw, I feel like if you give him a monster of a QB like this, sky's probably the limit for Straw.
Absolutely.
Torque, is this your first
And then
podcast in the SML?
Ooh.
This is podcast number 1 for Torque.
Wow, we're making history out here. All right, well, it's pick number 3. Why don't you take it?
All right. Pick number 3 for me, I had Mike and the Ravens. This one is Joe Burrow. And ironically, Mike has faced Joe Burrow numerous times this cycle so far already. And I've heard him complain about Lamar Jackson. Well, Mike, here's your elite QB1 who will not miss passes over the middle or to the boundary. Doesn't have the legs that Lamar does, but can put it where you want it when you need it there. Absolutely. So Joe Burrow goes to Mike and the Ravens.
Yeah, Burrow was one of those guys I was looking at for 1 and 2, but him being 30 years old, I mean, if you project that over a 5-year cycle, he's going to be 34 in his final season, and I just couldn't risk giving any kind of regression to Fig or if in Straw. I mean, you have those 2 elite quarterbacks there as well. You might as well take the guys that are almost devoid of regression. So that was my reasoning.
Yeah, I think
and
Burrow.
those two.
Sorry, go ahead, Don.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Those two are the ones with at this point where you're looking at essentially 99 overall type guys. The difference between Burrow and Richardson Herbert really is that throw power.
Yeah, and I think
and
Burrow
obviously-
fits Mike well too. It's not quite Lamar Jackson, who's been playing with this cycle, but he's always complaining about Lamar. So I think Burrow's more of
That
his
makes
type of passer.
Yeah, Burrow has 6 passing stats that are 99. Passing attributes. They're just all 99s. I actually don't know like how he gets better when you upgrade him at this point. It's like upgrading his juke and spin.
Right, and I think it gives Mike something else to focus on as far as like devs go and different things like that. And not that Lamar isn't that guy, because Lamar absolutely is Lamar Jackson. But I think, it allows Mike to kind of like not feel the pressure of like some of those misfires from Lamar, and then the threat to run and different things like that. Like, I feel like Burrow can sit back there, kind of put it where he wants. And I've watched Dump play a lot with him. And, like even when Burrow gets pressure, like to throw out a sack and just the ability to get outside the pocket and deliver a strike, it's impressive, And like when you get a guy like Burrow to Mike, I think it kind of just calms him down a little bit. He's been frustrated with Lamar here and there.
Yeah, I will say too that Mike's one of those guys. I know he's had some struggles. Mike, when Mike is actually like playing good ball, like Mike can beat absolutely anybody. Like Mike is a solid player. I don't think it's enough credit. He's one of those guys in the SML he's never going to be a perennial playoff guy. He's never going to be a Super Bowl favorite. But if you don't go in, do your thing, he absolutely can and will beat you. Like there's a lot of most of the SMLs like that. It can beat you any given Sunday. And you give him Burrow, you give him what theoretically should be perfect accuracy. I think it's a great pick.
Well, let's move on. I have the number 4 pick again. Here we have Prime, the Colts, and we went with Trevor Lawrence. I kind of had fun making this pick because obviously Colts and Jags kind of go at it throughout the year in real life, and I think you give Prime a good quarterback. He's gonna be good, and so Trevor Lawrence goes off the board here. I like it because it's just kind of that interdivision stuff. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence to Prime and the Colts right here at pick number 4.
I think Lawrence is the perfect pick because I think he fits Prime really well. He can do whatever he needs to, and he can still move around. He's not going to he's not Josh Allen fast. He's not Lamar Jackson fast, but he's got enough speed to get around, and Prime likes to get out of the pocket when he has to.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, and
the biggest takeaway here is the narrative here, right? I mean, all cycle, all last cycle is Prime and Fast competing, right? Prime and Fast competing. Fast finally gets his Jaguars this cycle, has 2 seasons, doesn't win a Super Bowl. Prime taking Justin Lawrence here, and Justin Lawrence, oh my God, Trevor Lawrence. Justin Herbert's already off the board. Fast taking Trevor Lawrence here and doing, what he always said Fast couldn't, this and that, would be the icing on the cake for his GOAT legacy here.
I remember you making this pick, and then I think the next day after, Prime was posting Trevor Lawrence gifts and talking him up in chat. So it was just funny how perfect it lined up.
absolutely, it did line up perfectly, and just I like this pick a lot for Prime. I think you give him a guy like Lawrence, and with the narrative, with the ability, and I think it's fitting, absolutely fitting.
Well, you want to talk about narratives? Let's talk about pick number 5. Paulie, I think the biggest narrative around him in recent years has been, is he tanking? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give him the best quarterback in the game, Patrick Mahomes, to Paulie. If he does poorly with Patrick Mahomes, he is tanking, and there's no doubt about it.
Legally tanking.
Legally. He might not lose picks this time, but
honestly, off the top of my head, when we agreed to do a redraft, I just assumed Mahomes would still be number 1 because he's been at 99 since the game dropped, and he's only gotten better. But then,
and he's only 30 years old, which we're doing a 5-year cycle here. So at the end of 5 years, he's going to be 35. If he regresses at all, it'll be just a little bit.
Right, and there's also that small chance he retires, I guess, for that last year.
All right, anybody else, or are we moving on?
No, all you.
All right,
that's a no-brainer. Yeah.
6th pick here, I got Torque, and now Torque, you're new to the league, and when we started doing this, I still really don't know that much about your play style, even though we did just play. So I went with the youngest, best remaining quarterback. I give you Desmond Ridder. He's young. He's got set foot lead. He's X factor. Doink's done a great job at developing him. He's younger than Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, everyone else that's still good on the board. I think you really take Desmond Ridder. He's your best overall full-rounded player on the board left.
Yeah, I like this. I like it a lot. I've had Stroud since my time here, obviously, in SML. And he's fun to use. He can make some errant throws here and there. But man, I know last night, it's funny you say that. Last night we had the big discussion in chat about, his abilities, and we got to see like his little player profile on Neon, and like he's special. He's special. And anytime you get a top quarterback in the league right out of the chute, you're bound to do special things. And I've always said this. I've been in Primer. I was in Primer for a little while. Had a Bucks team where Brady retired, so trying to figure out the quarterback situation on any team that doesn't have an elite quarterback is always tough. Especially if you're not a crazy consistent player.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Ridder has dragged Doink's bum ass to 8-0. So,
wait, Desmond Ridder has set feet lead. I had no idea.
He also has a jukebox and bulldozer. So if you ever try to go for one of those moves and you get injured, just make sure you pull your plug real quick.
No jukebox, unfortunately, or else I would be out there fumbling with my quarterback more. But yeah, bulldozer is something.
Fair enough.
Speaking of a bulldozer, I got the next pick. I've got Dom, and I took it. I mean, this is the most bulldozing quarterback out here. I went with Josh Allen. I think that's just best pick available. Going into the draft, when I saw Dom was one of my guys I had, I thought he's the type of person, he doesn't need a good quarterback to succeed. I mean, he make an NFC Championship game with Mac Jones. He's the guy who goes out, he runs his offense, and he doesn't need to be carried by some crazy passing ability or something like that.
I think he made a Super Bowl with Mac Jones.
I apologize, Tom. A Super Bowl, attaboy. That said, 99 throw power. Somehow Josh Allen's been benched 2 straight cycles, which is just preposterous and should not be happening. But you give Dom a legitimate quarterback, that's going to open up because he's such a good short, medium range passer who usually is more conservative with his play calls. I think Josh Allen will open some stuff up for him, let him take some more deep shots, especially if we can pair him with a deep threat, which, hey, stay tuned. But that's a type of quarterback I think will just open so much more up. He's already such a good defensive player, such a good rusher, and I think right away he's a Super Bowl threat here.
Yeah, and I think the time he did get Mac Jones to a Super Bowl, I think it was whenever he had 95 overall bazooka Mac Jones. So I mean,
Yeah.
you're like halfway there with Josh Allen, so getting the actual attributes on top of the abilities just kind of, maybe it's a time to win a Super Bowl instead.
Imagine if he had a good quarterback.
Good pick.
So.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Like, I mean, I've watched him play such good defense, these low-scoring games with nobody's at quarterback. You give him Josh Allen, sky's the limit for that guy.
Yeah, I don't ever want to go back and rewatch some of those Derek Carr, Desmond Ritter games from earlier this cycle. Those were not a lot of passes to be combined for 300 yards, if that.
Probably very similar to how they are in real life.
Oh, exactly. All right. Next pick is Coop in the Packers, and again, I think there's a pretty clear-cut upper echelon guy he left here in Lamar Jackson, who is also a perfect fit for Coop. Coop is on Team Chaos. Coop just wants to do hood rat shit with his friends. He wants to just sow discord and go have a good time. Lamar Jackson is, I guess, the emergence of Anthony Richardson, but outside of Richardson, Lamar Jackson is, 1A, 1B, the most fun quarterback to use. You can do literally everything. You can run around in circles. You can make any throw in the book. You might miss, an open guy occasionally, but everything is, at your fingertips, and that's a blast to use. So I think it's a no-brainer for Coop.
Yeah, I mean, Team Chaos on Lamar Jackson. I mean, it kind of it drafts itself. You don't even have to make this pick. It's just a snap pick, and
instant.
Yep, instant pick. All right. I'll jump into pick number 9, and before I get into it, before I get into the pick, I mean, I have Filthy here at number 9, and he's almost one of those guys you'd want to take later because you don't need the elite quarterback. He can kind of really dev anyone that he gets his hands on. He's one of the few guys that you see at the top of the stats every single year, and so instead of going after one of the few quarterbacks left, I took the first non-quarterback, and I went with Micah Parsons, who he's kind of that flexible edge rusher that you can kind of do anything with. You can drop him back into coverage, and he's not a liability, but he's obviously going to get most production whenever he's hand on the dirt, rushing the quarterback. And, we've seen Filthy use their D lineman occasionally. Why not give him the 90, what does he meet, 92 speed? 93 speed?
I don't
Something
know.
crazy like that?
He's really fast, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's really fast. I think he's got under pressure, edge threat. He's got every good ability. So, yeah, this was probably an easy pick for me. I guess Meats, this was your guy. You want to tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, you look at his sack numbers, and it's not crazy. I think he probably averages 6 or 7 sacks a season. But more than that, he's blowing up the run game once a game, just from completely the opposite side of the field. And he's going to get pressure on the quarterback a few times a game, and usually it's enough to make a difference. Perfect example, and I'm going back to it because this is my last game played. Last night against Torque, he was nowhere to be seen for most of the game. And then like on second down and 10, he had a sack to make it 3rd and a billion. And that's just the kind of player that you're getting there. that he might not make a play on make an impact on every play, but when he does make an impact, it's going to be a big one.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I got two questions here. First one for you, Meats. How have you been using Parsons? Do you just keep him, at right outside linebacker, right edge, or have you been kind of mixing up where you use him and where you line him up?
So he's a rush right end, and he's outside linebacker because you can't change his superstar abilities. I rush with him probably a good 75% of the time. Occasionally, I will have him drop back into coverage because he's so fast that he can make up for not being a great coverage guy with just his pure speed. But he's after the quarterback most of the time.
No, that makes sense. And I did just pull up his stats. He is at just over 8 sacks per season, which is still pretty impressive.
For this cycle, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's down
exactly.
from a few cycles ago, but.
And we know Filthy will user Parsons on sporadic plays as well. And have you tried just D-line usering him occasionally?
Oh hell no! I'm not even gonna touch. I mean, maybe you might be able to get a faster release on it, but I'm in the don't touch your best players. Let them be your best players.
Me too.
That is fair.
I trust him more than I trust my user to get a sack with him. So.
And I guess jumping up into pick number, what are we on now? 10? Yeah, pick 10. We've got TTS and the Titans. And, looking at TTS, he's been trying to make Will Levis work all cycle, but there's two X Factor quarterbacks left, and so I'm giving him one of them, and I'm going with Justin Fields. It was between Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts, and he's a Cowboys fan, so I wouldn't do that to him and give him Hurts. Besides, Justin Fields is arguably better. I'm not sure exactly what his abilities are, but we're going for it here with Justin Fields.
Yeah, Will Levis is 27 years old, 81 overall, 96 throw power. I mean, he's not like special, but he's a fine quarterback. But I love getting two-step and elite quarterback, and I think that would help him out. Maybe get him up even towards playoff contention.
Yep, and that's the goal for everyone, or at least most of us.
That should be the goal for just about everyone. And again, Fields is basically poor man's Lamar Jackson, poor man's Anthony Richardson. Yep. And by poor, I mean he's still really freaking good, and is you're very happy to get him at 10.
He's another one of those guys where if you're doing this draft, season 1, week 1, Justin Fields is probably still a first rounder, but he's nowhere near a top 10 pick. But Bomber's done pretty nicely with him. I know he got one off-season dev boost and got him up to X Factor. And I'd have to look at his abilities. My computer's dead, so I can't. But I'm sure he has at least something decent. I know he has Jukebox, which is pretty fun. So. He's got the speed, he's got the throw power, and he's got the X Factor. That's all that matters.
And he's got Bulldozer.
Oh, fun.
Although, hey, you know what? TTS is he's a good dude. I think Fields has Gambit, which means when you make consecutive passes for 5 yards, you can't be picked off by the CPU. That definitely helps someone who's been known to throw some picks here and there.
And I play TTS. I play TTS twice a year, I guess, and or twice a season, and like he makes some really good throws, and like sometimes Will Levis just doesn't get it there. When you have a quarterback like Fields who can do it, I mean, it helps a ton, definitely. Well, speaking of quarterbacks. We're going to stay on the quarterback train. We have Fins and the Dolphins. And Fins and the Dolphins, we gave Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts. This pick for me was really just giving Fins that quarterback weapon. To me, Hurts is like almost like I'm not going to say a great value Lamar Jackson, but kinda, but I think if you give Fins a pretty decent quarterback, in a division that now has some really big name quarterbacks, and Herbert, I think you gotta have Fields in there You gotta have Fields in the mix. So Fins with Hurts
I
with
think
this pick.
I think Jalen Hurts is like the last of the truly elite quarterbacks in this league, and he's definitely the last in that list. I don't think he's gonna compete with even Lamar Jackson, who we've seen be pretty bad at times. And this is coming, I play him twice a year, so I know he's capable of making bad throws. I know he's capable of making the best throws. I think he's an elite quarterback. I just think he's like in last place on that top tier.
Yeah, I wholly agree, Meats. And also, did you guys know he has Gunslinger?
I did.
I honestly, yeah, Gunslinger and Jukebox. Okay, but Gunslinger obviously is one of if not the best passing ability. But yeah, Hertz is I agree with exactly with what Meat said. End of the tier. There's no way Finns was leaving the first round without a quarterback because the last thing he wants to do is go through QB hell again after some of the guys he's been stuck with.
Yep. And I just think anytime you can get an elite quarterback off the board early, and I know Finn's a little bit, but I don't know him well enough. But I mean, you start off with Tua and that Dolphins team, and you're trying to get an elite quarterback through the draft or through free agency or whatever through trades, and yeah, I can only imagine. So having Hurts here would be awesome for him. Here we go. And this one was fun to pick for me because I have some experience with Gil and the Buccaneers here. Um, so I didn't really know. We played a little bit in primer, but when I heard that Gilbert likes to user the D tackle, I said,
Yes.
"Oh, well, let's go with Mr. Dexter Lawrence here." Dexter Lawrence the second goes to Gilbert in the first round. From what I've heard, I haven't had the experience. I will later in the season get a chance to play against Dexter Lawrence. But from what I've heard, that everyone's played him, is he's an absolute monster. And I've heard uh, Gil have success with Vita Vea, and I think Dexter Lawrence is on a whole different level, according to everyone else. So eager to
as
see.
someone that's as someone that's played Dexter Lawrence, he is literal hell. I know Aaron Donald retired before we did this draft, so he doesn't really get to shine here. But I think Dexter Lawrence is probably the second best D tackle this entire cycle, and you get him for the whole 5 years after we do this draft. I wouldn't want to have to deal with him 2 times a year.
As somebody who does deal with him 2 times a year, I actually have mixed feelings about this. I think it's a great pick for Gil. But truthfully, Dexter Lawrence kind of no-shows every time I play him for some reason. I do double team him literally every single play. For obvious reasons, because I know he's fantastic. So he's got to fight through 2 defenders, but I can't remember the last time he made a really good play against me. But he did break the league record for tackles for a loss in a single season. He had 46 tackles for loss last season. And if Gil's
That's insane.
if Gil's gonna user him, I'm like, good night. That record's getting broken immediately. I will say, in reference to Gil, I remember when I joined the league, I had never played competitively before. Sometimes I would play online, but barely. So I was a D-line user too, and I was not good. The first couple of seasons, I think I went like 5-12. And then I learned how to user a linebacker, and it helped. So I don't know if Gil's how good Gil's user is, but I would suggest let's try using a linebacker next time.
Yeah, the Torque, you touched on how Dexter Lawrence is on a whole nother level than Vita Vea. That's exactly what it is. Both, I mean, have pretty similar stats, are both absolute freak physical monsters. Dexter Lawrence has inside stuff. That is the difference. And inside stuff in this game is so unbelievably unbalanced compared to, someone like Vea, who's also a monster but doesn't have inside stuff. And you do see the difference there. I also agree with Meats in that while I think it's a perfect fit for Gil, I think, I mean, conventional wisdom says you don't take a DT that early, although young inside stuff for the whole cycle may actually be worth it. I do like the idea of building out your defense, especially when you're, the best player. Like, I think that's the
Yeah,
easiest way for somebody to go from bad to decent is just build out your defense. You only control one of them.
yeah, especially when I just read that Gilbert threw it into quadruple coverage just now in his game. So there is that. So I
Go
don't feel
five.
so bad taking Dexter Lawrence right in the first round.
Bit of a spoiler alert. We're as we are recording this, we're through about 4.5 rounds. Vita Vea is undrafted so far. He's 31 years old, so that probably is playing a large part into it. But
Spoilers.
Dexter
Spoiler
Lawrence
alert.
is so much better.
Yes, and you get him for the cycle, so easy pick there.
All right, well, I'm up now with the 12th pick, and I got Dan, and I knew right away what I was gonna do. Dan he's really never been somebody that needs a star-studded offense. And we see him, he's got Tyler Huntley, who is, he's okay in real life, kind of bad. And he's just about that in Madden too. So I stayed away from offense here, and I went with the best defensive player on the board. I went with Nick Bosa. He's an absolutely phenomenal pass rusher, and Dan's gonna eat with that defense.
I
Yeah, I don't
that's
really think
a
there's much to say from me on this one. I mean, Dan's definitely not going offense here unless, he has Anthony Richardson, who he's spoken highly about all cycle, but he was gone 11 picks ago or something like that. So getting someone he's familiar with and Nick Bosa, who can really do anything for the rest of the cycle. I mean, he's 99 power rush. I mean, he's probably a little bit slower, so we probably won't have him playing like too much of that outside linebacker, like sometimes covering. Probably going to be exclusively interior, almost D-line. I think Dan runs a 3-4, so he'll probably be on that weaker side 3-4, like his left end or something. So yeah, pretty easy pick here in my opinion.
All right, well, let's move on now. I got Woods coming up with pick 14. I went with the first offensive player in the draft that's not a quarterback. And I went with the most insane wide receiver I've seen this cycle, Justin Jefferson. 99 change of direction, 99 spec catch. He's wide open on like every play, no matter what you do. And I think my main reason in doing this was A, he's a fantastic player, but B, Woods traded away A.J. Brown this season, and you see what happened to his offense. He's throwing interceptions out the wazoo, and he's 2-7 or 2-8 because of it. Adding Justin Jefferson, an elite wide receiver, makes Woods so much more dangerous.
Surprisingly, Justin Jefferson wasn't actually my wide receiver one, but for someone like Woods, who we've seen what he did with AJ Brown, I think it's like a perfect fit, He's not overly relying on those streaks on the outside or anything ridiculous like that. He just passes to the open guys we saw in that Super Bowl run, a lot to the tight end, and having someone that just can run every single route that you want him to is pretty important just to get a basis for your team. So
in my
good pick
opinion, he's
there.
the best wide receiver in the league. Now, that might not actually be true, but that's my opinion, and it's because he can do everything. Yeah, Jamar Chase is probably faster and can run streaks, and he's not going to run an out route or a zig route as well as Justin Jefferson is.
Yeah, Jefferson. I really like this pick for that you have for Woods here. He's basically like wide receiver Joe Burrow. I mean, he's a little bit more athletic than Burrow is relative to his peers, but I mean, it's 99 in just about everything. Change of direction, as you mentioned, spectacular catch, deep route running, medium, short, CIT, release are all 98s. Catching's a 99. Those are all 99s by next year. And he has route 10 and outside apprentice. He can run literally every route.
Yeah, and I think when you give Woods a guy like Justin Jefferson who can do a little bit of everything, I think it kind of bails you out, if you know what I mean. Like Woods can here and there, and I just recently played him, and he can you can see the frustration build, from not having that past explosive offense. And so he tends to kind of force some things, especially late in games if he's trailing and things like that. But I think you give him a guy like Jefferson who can sometimes bail you out of those situations. And I think this is like a perfect pick for Woods.
Yeah, that's spot on. On to NYT in the Browns. We got a first here. I think NYT brings Miles Garrett, keeps him home. Uh, I agreed with everything Neat said about Nick Bosa, about Dan. I think Dan does take Nick Bosa there. Miles Garrett was the best defensive player available, just because he's 7 speed faster, he's a little stronger, and the rest of their stats are pretty much identical. Both have edge threat, so on and so forth. Miles Garrett is an absolute monster. You leave him not double teamed, and he basically just annihilates your right tackle. NYT is one of the few guys who'll mix in a little D line here and there. Plus, he's used Miles Garrett. Once you've used Miles Garrett, you don't ever want to have to give him up.
Yeah,
I don't know what
Garrett's
there
one of
is
the
to add.
Yeah, how old is Garrett? Is he 30, or is he 31? He should just
He's
be 30, yeah.
30. Bosa's 28, I believe.
Yeah, so I mean, Garrett, you're gonna get him for basically the entire cycle. I mean, it's only gonna go. He's gonna be 34 in his final year, so yeah, I don't think you have to worry about too much regression. So pretty standard pick here.
Always nice too when you can have, I guess, familiarity with a guy like, you get a guy like Miles Garrett. NYT's used him. You know, he knows what he's capable of, and I think that's a guy like Meat said, like you just kind of let be great. Like you don't have to go user that guy for him to be good. Kind of like a Miles Garrett. I mean, Micah Parsons. You can kind of that's one part of the field you don't have to worry about. They'll make the big time play when you need them to.
I will say, Miles Garrett is maybe historically the best defensive player in SML history. He doesn't hold the sack record because sacks were stupid that one cycle. But he's set in second place when he had 37 and a half. Now, obviously, that's a different cycle, so he's not the same player. But just historically, I mean, Miles Garrett is just insane. He's up there with Aaron Donald and guys that you just want on your team, and it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Yeah, good
super,
pick there.
super duper elite class.
Oh, he did set the record for tackles for loss, and not even in that insane cycle. I think it was last cycle he set the record for tackles for loss. It's been broken since then, but he did hold it for a bit.
Yeah, he's a freak.
He is a freak. All right, and now I think we have another first coming up next. Bomber in the Bears. Bomber has been pretty vocal this whole cycle, even before this cycle, about getting a quarterback. He doesn't want to go through quarterback hell. I think he's capable of deving a quarterback up, but I mean it's infuriating. It's a whole ordeal. It's not fun. I think he grabs a young stud quarterback, takes our first CPU generated player of this draft, and drafts Brent Dwyer. For those of you not familiar with his game, Brent Dwyer is the current Dolphins quarterback. In his third year, he's 24 years old. He's 89 overall superstar. I mean, 96 throw power, 93 throw under pressure, 91 mid accuracy. He checks the right boxes. Decent speed in 84. I mean, he has dog shit abilities. He's got spin cycle and sleight of hand. But superstar that young, 89 overall already, with the right physical traits is, I think, a no-brainer for Bomber.
Yeah, and Bomber's going to be one of those guys that he's already pretty good, so you could pretty much give him to anybody. But Bomber's going to be one of those guys that takes him to the next level. And he's 24 years old. Wouldn't shock me if Bomber were to have him to a 99 in 3 seasons.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys. I think I play him twice a year, and I mean, I know he makes some crazy throws out of nowhere, and a lot of them are going to my team. But he's got that arm. What does he have? 90? What do you say it was?
96.
Is that throw power?
96.
96. Yeah, I mean, he can basically throw the entire field. I mean, he's no Anthony Richardson throwing 99 uh, air distance balls, but he's definitely got the arm to get it where he needs it. And he's got the 86 or 84 speed 90 excel, so we know Bomber's been looking at those rollouts and stuff on the goal line and then looking to run a lot on the third down, so it leaves that open too. So it's not too drastic of a change from Fields, but definitely he has the flexibility, especially whenever he needs it.
Does he have that Aaron Rodgers short arm release? I can't remember. One of the rookies does, but I don't know if it's him or not.
I have no idea.
You would know if you played him, so I guess he doesn't.
I don't look at that stuff. I just load up and play. But I guess that, and then before I get into pick 17, I think we're probably way over time frame goal, so we're probably going to cut it off here before we get into the second half of the first round. So I'm not going to reveal who's up next, but we got some spicy picks coming up. If you were in the first 16, go ahead and let us know who you would have taken. I know we didn't get through too many of them, but interesting to see where guys would have went if they got to pick for themselves. Obviously, we didn't ask each other who we would have taken. We kind of wanted it to be equal grounds on every pick. So whenever I pick, or who picked for Torque, Doink picked for, or Meats picked for Torque, he didn't ask him, hey, who do you want here, type of thing. So after the first round, I'd like to see where people would have actually went. So yeah, anyone have any parting words before we finish part one of part one?
Front cell here for the next episode. If you weren't in this episode, you will be in the next one.
Wow, shocker.
Unless you get the
Like,
boot, then sorry,
Yeah.
you're not gonna.
Well, yeah, Scoob won't be in it, so.
Unless
Well,
you,
actually,
uh,
I think you. I think he did pick for Scoop at the time, so
Technically.
the first
I
few
did.
picks will be for Scoop, and then the second half of or I think
Will
round
be
4
for
and on
Wine.
might be a Wine. Yeah. So Wine, you're gonna get Scoop's team. It's just like SML. Whenever there's team or owner turnover, you get who you
Yeah.
had, so it's perfect.
I gotta say,
Alright.
I guess mild spoiler, it's looking like a decent team.
Okay, they all
Oh,
do.
Looking yeah.
All the teams look good. Whatever, they're all getting 99 players because for whatever reason this Madden is so stacked with players. And I would definitely argue that Dan, there might be a little bit more than 5 cycle players left. So
There's definitely more than 5 cycle players.
that was kind of what started this whole idea a few months back, and we kind of waited till the end of season 3 so we could get some more generated rookies. But I guess with that
Yeah,
being
this is-
said, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is actually a spite draft. Just it's really just an excuse for Rice to make a spreadsheet. Is what this really is. But
Yes, of course.
That's why they gave me Dan, because I didn't know we were mad at Dan.
We're not mad at Dan. It was just funny that he said there was. I forget his exact quotes. I'm sure I'm gonna get the screenshot sent to me here as soon as this gets posted. But I think he said something like, "There's not many cycle players left," and then I just thought it was funny, so I asked Doink if he wanted to do this, and then you guys got brought along later. So, regardless,
So-
thanks for tuning into part 1 of part 1, and we'll look to get another part out sometime. We'll see when. This took forever, so.
Yeah, these
see.
these draft rounds are taking 3 days each. So
Yeah, they get lost in the mix pretty much every day at some point. So someone's
Yeah,
always sitting on something. I will say this. It's kind of cool to see how these teams are shaping out and the identities that they have, and not just the teams but the users. A team based on a user is always so cool because I think it tells the story of kind of that person and how they play and who they like, and just I'm eager to see what this looks like once it's complete, if it ever is.
Yeah, and that's what we wanted. We didn't want some, power rankings, top 100 players. It's kind of a little more personalized than that. You got guys Filthy who we know he's going to dev a quarterback, so we're not going to give him one. He's going to take whatever star or superstar young guy, and he's going to get him to X Factor in 2 seasons, no matter what. So just a little more personalized. I think it's more fun that way. All right, and I think think we're good.
Send us away.
That concludes part one of part one.
Great
Maybe
ending.
more
See
parts
ya.